Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Stranger Things 5 Chapter 3, The Turnbow Trap. Full spoilers from the start of this review as always. This is the one directed by Frank Darabont, so I've been looking forward to seeing this one because it's a big name director to get here. He, in case you didn't know, was the director of The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, also The Mist. All Stephen King stories, by the way, so that works out because, as we know, one of the big inspirations for Stranger Things, the show, was Stephen King. Really makes a difference. Like, you can tell he's a very accomplished cinematic director. He definitely brings something to this episode. There's some great visual scenes, some really exciting and gripping set pieces. So you get, for example, a scene with Holly in the episode where she's like dancing around the house dressed up, dancing to the Tiffany record, I Think I'm Alone Now, which is going to be the latest Stranger Things song to stick in my head for a while. But that moment you can see like the lush colours and the direction of it. Or there's a really badass action sequence with Hopper in the Upside Down where he tosses two grenades backwards over his head and they go over the wall in slow motion and they land onto the soldiers. Something like that. That was really badass. And that's before we even get to the Home Alone style massive set piece, which happens near the end of the episode with the gang and the Demogorgon. I think this might be the best episode of the three so far. It's close between this one and the second one, which I did enjoy a lot also. I might just give the edge to this one because of Darabont directing, along with how it brings things together with the plots and how we reunite the team, essentially, like the core team, and how they hatch their whole plan, which is always a big part of what Stranger Things is and the charm of the show. It's always enjoyable to see them hatching plans and working together as a group. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. It helps the channel out a lot. Let me know what you think of the episode, as always. Share me out on social media. But I'm going to dive in, and I'll start off with the Hopper L stuff in the Upside Down, because to me this is the weakest part of the episode. And it's not terrible. There's definitely good stuff in it. It's just this stuff, it didn't seem to have the same momentum as the other stuff, and it did seem like there were certain bits where they were just playing for time, and it sort of got dragged out a little bit too much, some of the stuff. I think overall it just wasn't as interested as the other stuff going on in the episode. There's some nice father and daughter type moments with Hopper and Al. Hopper questioning Al about, are you maybe reading too much into it, like this thing with the wall. There could have been like countless reasons for like the trail going dead, and I like that because it makes sense that he is questioning this. Like, are you reading too much into it? Do you just want to jump to like the logical conclusion? And as I said, there are some fun action stuff. It's just, it gets a little bit bogged down and a little bit cheesy with like them hiding behind the wall, because at one point Al tries to use her power and things go wrong, like she passes out, she gets, whatever happens, I think she's trying to use it and she has a bit of an overload, and Hopper has to take over, like he has to tend to Al and kind of hide from the soldiers or keep them at bay as well. But at one point they kidnap one of the soldiers and they question them about Dr. K, Linda Hamilton's character, because Hopper has obviously heard about her being Branna's replacement. L goes into the soldier's mind and she follows her down this corridor, and we come to like a big door, and it's at this point where Al's telling Hopper to get the soldier to tell them what's behind the door, and he's demanding it, and the soldier is sort of getting all like nervous, and he's claiming, I don't know what's behind the door. I think Elle does jump to a couple of like Mulder style leaps in this. It was a bit weird. Then there's this whole thing because at one point one of the soldiers, the one they kidnapped, is like peeing on the wall, basically, almost like, because they drive through in their trucks into the Upside Down. And I guess just because he literally needed to go toilet, he does it on the wall. And because of that, Elle jumps to... He's familiar with the wall. I don't know, that just seems like a little bit of a leap. And then she's leaping to... The military have got Vecna, so Vecna's behind the wall, which I suspect probably isn't going to be the case, because as far as we know... Vecna is living it up for, he's in the Upside Down and he's free and he's doing his own thing. So it just seemed like that was a bit of a leap for me a couple of times from now in this episode, and it's probably just because she's frantic and desperate to get to Vecna and is very emotionally invested in this stuff, which is understandable. But yeah, I did think the stuff with Elle and Hopper in this episode was a little bit more filler compared to some of the other stuff. So I would say it definitely has its moments, but I would say it's my weakest stuff personally. By the way, if I have one other scene which I wasn't so keen on in the episode, which does get a bit cringe, it's the scene where Murray starts talking to Jonathan about has he had sex with Nancy? Kind of gross, because at one point he's like, well, her parents is in the our parents are in the hospital and critical, is it really the time? And Murray's like, well, it's the perfect time. She's vulnerable. Well, that was a bit much from Murray. Like, he's sort of crossed a line there where it's okay, it's part of his whole vibe, and he's a bit crude and has like a dark sense of humour, and like it's always been a part of his vibe, and he sort of does like to stir up trouble between characters. But I just thought that was a little bit like crossing the line for someone who's meant to be a good guy to suggest that, hey, Jonathan, why don't you get some, because Nancy's emotionally vulnerable. Yeah, it did make me cringe. Like, I wasn't too happy with that. I think it's fine by the end of the scene because Nancy turns it around on them, because the whole thing is that Murray's brought in supplies for this big heist that they're planning, including guns, and as we know from season 4, Nancy has become quite familiar and quite talented with the use of guns, so they're going out to do a bit of like target practice. And so she turns around to them at one point, be quiet, shut up, and load me up, because I want to go. And she puts down Murray's manhood, which is fair enough, considering what he's been talking about her. So it's all fine by the end, because she puts them in their place. But yeah, come on, Murray, that was a bit crude. I mean, have they had sex at all? Or does he just mean, like, recently, because they've been having these issues? I'm assuming he knows they've had sex at least once, because didn't they have sex in season 2? Like the scene with him when he basically was the catalyst for like putting them together. Surely they had sex then, but I don't know. I don't know if he's got selective memory, if he means have you ever had sex, like have you had sex so far, or if he just means have you had sex recently. The group getting back together and reuniting was like so satisfying. Joyce giving Will a good talking to, him and Robin, for like going off behind her back. I thought that was really funny. Will has a pop back saying and her plan sucked, and tells her, we found out all this intel on Vecna, it really helped going to the site. But of course that's not the point, and you can see Robin feels bad. Robin again is so good in this episode. Like, I'm really loving her this season, because she's very apologetic, but she does sort of pep him with like this this little comment about, we're sorry, we'll even know it next time, and she looks very scolded. But then you have that beautiful heart-to-heart with Joyce and Will later on, which was one of the big scenes that popped up in like the trailers ahead of this season, and that's a really great scene. Joyce talking about her regrets with the, like, originally when Will was taken all these years, because she talks about how it took 8 hours to realise he'd been taken. It's not your fault, Mum, like, you couldn't have known. And this is just, I think, with a show like this, a coming-of-age show, like, when you have these moments later on, when you recall past events, but it's through a different perspective, because now Will's a much older, like, he's pretty much an adult. I mean, in the show, he's virtually like a late teen and adult. We know in reality the actor's like 20. Will now going into adulthood, he's got a whole different perspective and can say, no, it's Mum, it's okay, it wasn't your fault. And yeah, that's a really beautiful scene, and she kind of says, I know my plan wasn't the best, but I can still help you out, I can still be your mother. And I do like this switch up now. I do like them. We've got Joyce working as part of the gang, working alongside the boys as like, and well, boys and girls as like the parental figure, because Hopper's off with 11. And just because Hopper's a more of a renegade as a character, having Joyce as the parental figure in this gang now, I think that does add something a little bit different, because when she's hearing some of these like wild ideas they're having, like just her being taken aback, I think is really entertaining, and Winona Ryder plays it very well. Get a little bit more with Will and Robin, and just kind of tying up some of the stuff with him and, well, her and Vicky, and seeing them at the hospital. Will does admit in this episode that he did catch them, he did see them, and he's asking about how was it kind of starting a relationship with Vicky, like how did you do it? And again, I think this is meant to add more to the idea that Will probably is secretly gay and struggling to come out itself. So that all works quite nicely. That's pretty solid stuff. Lots of nice little moments as they just reunite and come together as a group, and they sort of discuss what the plan is going to be. Jonathan says sorry to Nancy. They have a little moment. The Steve Dustin banter, which is back in full force, which I'm always in favour of, like them fighting over the drill, which is very entertaining. Dustin snatching it off him, jumping on top of the car, just smiling, being quite like mischievous. That's really fun stuff. It's good to have the bromance back on between those two. So Nancy and Mike explain what they learned at the hospital about Henry appearing to the kids and befriending them, telling Holly that he's her imaginary friend, and how that helps him to get inside their head and manipulate them. And that links really nicely to Will saying that he knows who the next target is going to be. Then it's going to be Derek, who just happens to be the brother of Erica's friend Trisha, or ex-best friend. Mike brings out the figures. I can't help but mention that, because of course he had that scene in episode 1 where they were setting the crawl into motion, and he was using the figures for that, and that was really lovely. Also, when he brought them out in the scene with Holly, which was a really touching scene. So I'm really into him using the figures, like bringing them out just to explain the plan. And that goes back to the whole way they use Dungeons and Dragons in the show and things like this. It just makes sense then, as like kids or teens, young adults, they would go into these things, and it's just a good visual thing for the audience to see. Real dark humour in this episode, which I really appreciated, like the dark humour when they where they're just talking about this extreme plan, this idea of drugging these kids and kidnapping them and using Derek as bait to maybe lure out the Demogorgon. And the whole plan is to trap the Demogorgon, drug it, so that then they can put a tracking device on it and then track it when it goes back to Vecna. So it's a whole elaborate plan, and they've got the whole gear. So it involves them going to Erica. So we finally get to see Erica after episode 3. I was wondering where she was, and she makes a glorious return. Now in Mr. Clark's class, it's a science class, it's a favourite class. And I like that because it means she's kind of got that interest. She's following in the footsteps of like some of the other characters on the show, getting into all this nerdy stuff. Yeah, it's her favourite class. You can tell she's really enjoying it. So she's bummed out when Mike and Lucas pulls her out of it. She's even more bummed out when they explain that they want her to go and socialise with Trisha as part of the plan. It's also funny, like, her saying, you've got 57 seconds to explain what went wrong with the crawl. Lucas is like, there's no way we can explain all that in 57 seconds. And that's just funny because it's such a precise amount of time to give them. That's a very Erica thing to do. When they explain that, well, you'll be drugging Trisha and Derek, and because she doesn't seem to like Derek either. Big surprise, no one seems to like Derek because Holly doesn't like him either. He seems like one of those kids who just like rubs every other kid the wrong way. So as soon as they say to her, part of this plan is then you'll be drugging them and you'll never have to see Trisha again, then she seems like, well, why didn't you just start with that? So that's really funny. So she goes over to dinner. She brings like a pie, and the idea is that she's drugged the pie, or they've drugged the pie, and that's how they're going to knock out the family. And as I said, it is a really dark, extreme plan, but it's definitely a good idea on paper. It's just that they're going to these extreme lengths to do it. Erica are having this back and forth at the dinner with Trisha is really fun as well. Like, they fell out over a boy because apparently Erica was moving in on Trisha's love interest, according to Trisha. And there's this whole thing with the pie where Erica's encouraging Trisha to eat it. It's like, are you trying to fatten me up? And she's like all suspicious. And I tell you what, I just laughed so much at some of the slapstick humour in this scene with the parents slowly passing out, especially the father, because he gets up and he feels unwell, and it's a slow thing where he's like stumbling around the room and the mother doesn't know what's going on, and eventually he passes out. And even funnier was Derek passing out because he starts laughing, and I was kind of laughing with him just because it was quite a funny like slapstick scene. So him laughing, but then the last minute, like his face flopping flat down, that was just, as I said, good old school sort of hijinks. That scene was darkly funny, and also it's really brutal how Erica gets in the scene because Trisha refuses to eat the pie, especially after the parents pass out and she can see that there's something going on. And so eventually Erica is just like, I told you to eat your pie. And she's just so savage. She jumps on her and injects the syringe, and it's brutal, but it's so funny and satisfying because I think because you're on Erica's side, because you want the plan to go ahead and for it to like succeed. So you're like, you have nothing invested in Trisha really apart from her just being a character who knows Erica. So it's like, yeah, drug her Erica, get her down, you're only knocking her out, let's get this thing going. But it is savage. Like, the Erica actress just gets into it so much. It's really good. Steve and Co all come in and they just drill that big hole in the floor and it drops down, And the whole thing later is that they're going to put the rug over it so that you've got the hole underneath, and they're going to lure the Demogorgon towards the hole. But just that iconic badass shot of them all standing over it looking down is really good. And as I said, once we get into this thing, the whole Home Alone action type scene, how elaborate it is. There is one moment with like a CGI effect which didn't look so good, but apart from that it was so full on and edge of your seat stuff, and just a lot of fun to see the different parts of it. Lucas's involvement in it with throwing the sort of lighting, I think they must have been marbles, but they looked like coloured sort of balls. The best part of it was the barbed wire, which was down at the bottom, and it going into the barbed wire, and then they set some fire off, and Nancy of course gets her shots in. At first a gun jams, Jonathan's there supporting her, and she does get the shots in. But of course the plan does go awry because Derek starts waking up, which sort of puts a bit of a thing on it, and the Demogorgon eventually just does a U-turn out of the scene, like he dives through a window or something and goes back into the Upside Down, and Will seems to start communicating with Vecna, and it seems like the Demogorgon got called away. It's a very good scene, a very entertaining scene, very well directed by Darabont, of course. And that just leaves the Holly and Henry stuff in the house, which again I enjoyed a lot of this because we get a bit more a sense of Holly's personality with the stuff than Henry leaves her, because he says he has to go, and because his next target is obviously Derek. He leaves Holly all these gifts, like leaves her the Tiffany record, leaves her some things to dress up with, some fancy thing, and it's really good. Like, you can see how Holly would be taken in by Henry, and how she likes this sense of freedom of having this imaginary friend who seems to like really enjoy her company and really just gives her things that she likes. And when he leaves her in charge of the house, that's something which wouldn't happen at home probably. It's very relatable because we've all had that as kids. Never really get left in charge of things until a certain age, so to actually have an adult figure say you can be left in charge of the house is a lot of fun. It's very free, and you get to see the sense of freedom in the scene. Her dancing around the house to the record, dressing up, a bit of comedy in there as well because of her talking to the record cover, the Tiffany record cover, like she's actually talking to Tiffany. And at some point someone rings the doorbell and just keeps ringing it, and she assumes then it's Derek because she like starts swearing at him or shouting at him, "Go away." I like how they play with this, where it keeps cutting back and forth between her and the other stuff in the episode, so it sort of builds the mystery of who exactly is at the door. So where we go is, by the end of the episode, she follows someone into the woods, and she thinks it's Henry, like she assumes it's Henry, because the person leaves a note for her, and it seems then it's someone who's pretending to be Henry. Big reveal at the end of the episode, which I didn't see coming, was it's Max. Max is back, because she pops out in front of Holly, says a quick line, and we cut to credit. I think she said something like, "I've been looking for you," or something like that. But whatever it was, she pops out in front of her, and we cut to credits. And this is very interesting, because one of the things I was thinking throughout the episode is, where is Max? Because in the last episode, her heart rate started going up in the scene with Lucas. So I naturally expected her to be in this episode for her to come out of the coma. And I sort of thought it was funny that Lucas didn't mention anything about her. Like, surely if he was in the room when her heart rate went up, then you naturally assume that she's probably going to come out of the coma. Not that she would leave hospital straight away, of course, but it did seem then she was about to come out of the coma at the very least. So I think what I assume with that is then it was maybe just something for the audience, just to have a hint that Max is on the comeback, rather than something which was actually maybe happening in front of Lucas. It was just a visual for the audience. My idea now is, and I'm assuming this is what they're doing, is that she hasn't literally come out of the coma. I think she's still in the coma, but she's obviously in like a dream world. She's going to try and protect Holly from Vecna now in this dream world, and go into the upside down that way. Fun little twist. I think that's quite a fresh way to deal with this storyline, because if Max just woke up from the coma, recovered, and just rejoined the team and became part of the fight again, of course I would probably enjoy it, because I enjoy Max, I enjoy her as part of the team. But it probably wouldn't be as interesting, and it would probably be a bit more predictable. And I quite like this idea of maybe it's Max's destiny to help out Holly this way and to fight Vecna in like this sort of dream type world. And it actually makes me wonder now if Max might become a sacrifice. Like if by the end of the show she might end up saving these kids, like she might save Holly and be a part of the fight against Vecna, but ultimately that's her sacrifice, that's her destiny to save them, but she doesn't actually come out of the coma and survive. I could see that being a thing now. And if that turns out to be the case, I think that would be very sad, obviously, to lose Max, but I think that would be a great way to deal with this stuff, because a lot of people sort of complain about, are they wimping out a bit about like killing big characters? Are they wimping out of doing the thing with Max? And I think this is maybe a good way to address that. Like when I was talking to Alex on one of our live streams about it, we were discussing the idea of they've got something big planned for Max in season 5, and they've got a good track record of paying this stuff off, so it's almost a case of wait and see what they've got in store. And if this is what they've got in store, then I'm very happy for it. Like, it's been a little frustrated just waiting for Max to become a character and pop up again, and we've had a couple of episodes with her just in the coma, and then she makes a random appearance at the end of this episode. But if that's what they're doing, and if her new role is to like protect kids like Holly, then I think that's a really good use of Max, and I'm really excited to see that stuff. And you could almost sort of tie it back to her past with Billy as well, like the fact that she did have a bit of a dark relationship with her late brother or half-brother. Stranger Things Chapter 3 of Season 5. Very good stuff, very good episode overall, and I really like the way this season is heading, and there's a lot of classic Stranger Things type hallmarks in this episode, which I think makes it all the more exciting. So let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, as I said before. If you want to support the channel, you can do on patreon.com/borednow. You can also become a channel member at 3 different tiers. You can make a one-off donation at the PayPal button on my account. You can make a one-off donation on a super chat. You can also hype up the video by hitting the hype button, and that will help get it out to more eyes. And don't forget, coming up next week, it should be Thursday, me and a couple of guests, a couple of my regular collaborators, will be teaming up for a Stranger Things special live stream discussion of the episode so far and how we think the season is going. So thanks everyone, take care, keep watching TV, see you soon, bye.